an acceptable person. And the reason I am acceptable is because I'm white.
I remember when I was going to get my driver's license renewed for the first time. I really couldn't see very much without glasses. I didn't have any glasses with me. They had you go to one of these machines you look in and see like what letter it is and etc. I couldn't see any of it. But I was one of the few white people there, and the guy behind the desk was this older white guy, and he just said, "Oh, don't worry about it. Go ahead." I was like, "Is he just letting everybody through?" And I saw that he wasn't, and I kind of was like, "Oh, okay."
It's the ability to walk into the bank in Savannah when we were ready to build our house and borrow $100,000, and neither one of us were working. I mean, that to me, that is just so incredible that we could do that. I mean, of course we had to present, we had to give them facts and figures and all that kind of thing, but if you were a person of color and you walked in and you said, well, we're neither working and they're going to loan you $100,000, I don't think so.
Oh, simple things. I mean, from everything from the ease of getting a bank loan to knowing that I can drive just about anywhere in the city and not get stopped because of my color by the police.
When I drive down the road and I get pulled over by a police officer, it's probably because either I've broken the law or I'm getting a flat tire and the police officer's going to tell me I'm getting a flat tire.
Well, when I get pulled over, I don't get tickets, I'm a white woman, middle class, in a minivan. I get pulled over all the time for speeding. And it's almost become a joke. And then, the police officers apologize to me for pulling me over, and I know if I was a person of color, that wouldn't happen, I know that I would be pulled over a lot more if I was a person of color because I speed every day. And so I get stopped, they look at my license, and then they let me go,
I've experienced whiteness on the 3 occasions that I've been pulled over by law enforcement driving a car. One time I ran a red light, it's turning red, right? Another time I was speeding, another time I had a headlight out. And every single time I got off with a warning. I never got a ticket for any of those things. It was privilege and whiteness, therefore, that helped get me off. And I think for the average person, it would be whiteness that would allow me not to even have to think about why. I could get away and thinking, oh, I sweet-talked my way out of that. I did, but I was aided by the fact that I'm white.
They're not going to do a body check on me. They're not going to rip my car apart looking for a reason to haul me in. I'm not profiled. That's white privilege.
Basically, when I go to City Council or County Commission, I expect my representatives to take me seriously, and they do for the most part, because they know that they have to be more accountable to the white community, because the white community has more power and money and can vote them out of office.
We as white people have a sense of what our rights are, that we have the right to, live well, live safely, have health care and police that respond to us, have city officials that pay attention to us, have, the needs of our community, be able to have those met. And I think that if you talk to people of color or look at communities of color, that does not exist for people. That idea of those rights.
The more I know, the more it's like, I've really got to talk about privilege here. Even though, I faced a lot of shit in my life. I really had all this stuff happen, but I still had whiteness in a way that's given me all this stuff.
And it's all these things which not only give you privilege in the sense of stuff and access to stuff, but also it validates who you are. So you have this feeling that, I'm important, I'm worthwhile, that other people don't have. They have to get it somewhere else. They might get it from their family or what have you, but I'm going to get it from everyone, with few exceptions.
I was taught that you respected black folk, but not really as human beings, more like cats and dogs and cows. You wouldn't mistreat a cat or a dog in my family, and you wouldn't mistreat a black person.
I don't have any trouble admitting that I'm a racist. I think it's absurd to try to fight with that. I grew up in this society. I was conditioned by it. I think internally in my psyche I've grounded and rooted those attitudes, and I see it in me all the time. I mean, I'm always dealing with it. I don't think that makes me a bad person. I don't think that means that I've grounded in original sin or anything. It just means I've been well indoctrinated. But it does also call me to do something about it.
I consider myself somebody who does racist things and acts on the racism I have within me because of the context of the world in which I grew up and live in.
For me, individually, to recognize and acknowledge that I have the power of race in me, and that I'm going to be, I don't believe I'll ever have a time when I look at anybody and don't see their racial classification first.
Oh, I hate to admit it, but I still have thoughts that I'm smarter than some black people just because of skin color. I mean, I'm sorry, but that still crosses my mind.
Stereotypes will pop in my head just like everybody else, When I see somebody, a stereotype will pop up, and then I have to say, no, that's a prejudice.
When I'm in a classroom of students, I'll tend to look at the white students more than I'll look at the black students. And when I realized I was doing that, I was shocked. And I tried immediately to begin to train myself to stop doing that. And it was astonishingly difficult. There was something about a natural tendency to look at white faces in a way that I did not have the same natural tendency to look at black faces. And I think that's a kind of an ingrained, inborn racism, is all I can think of it as.
I remember I was talking with a young man named Sylvester, and he was saying, "You're racist." And I'm going, "I'm not." He's going, "You are." "I'm not." We went back and forth like that for a while. And then I had to go get refreshments, so I said, "Hold on." And I went upstairs, and my mother turned to me, and she said, "Get a grip on yourself. You're a white young girl, you've grown up in the racist society, you're racist, deal with it, move on." But that was, that was an amazing gift that my mother gave me, because it allowed me to turn all of my defensiveness about it into, oh, well, maybe I am.
Racism and prejudice are very different things. And all of us have grown up with prejudices. Some of us have prejudice against people of color, some people have prejudice against white people, and some of us are downright awful about it.
Because so much of the focus is on personal prejudices. That's how I think a large part of the U.S. population analyzes race matters, is between different groups of people.
Well, I think it works the same way. If black people feel that white people can be racist towards them, I don't see any difference between a black person being racist towards a white person.
In high school, the high school I attended was probably 60% black, 40% white, and being white in the majority black class, I was picked on and teased for that. So
sometimes you come across people that feel because of what had happened in the past that we're held responsible. I'm 30 years old. I wasn't around when that was happening.
I know what it feels like to be subjected to anger for something that I personally never did.
If we're in the wrong place sometimes, it's obvious that we're in the wrong place, we're the wrong color to be in that place, you'll hear a comment. You'll hear some things that's not so nice that you would never think that you would hear. You're a little too white to be in this neighborhood.
When I was teaching, I was not privileged because I had to interact with a lot of stereotypes about white people, and I had to deal with them on that level, but I was privileged in the sense that I got the job in the first place.
I think that one of the key things to understand about racism is, like Malcolm X said, racism is like a Cadillac. There's a new model every year, and it's racism is a dynamic social construction, so it's always changing, it's always mutating. So people that say, well, there's no racism anymore, they're referring to racism as it existed in 1950 or 1920 or 1910.
Racism permeates every aspect of our society, and it's made it, a world that we live in that's very unequal.
It isn't what you personally did or did not do, and I think that's such a hard leap.